There is kryptonite, in a sense, for politicians. What is the thing that is most terrifying to them that they avoid at all costs, that weakens them immediately for the corrupt politicians out there, most of whom are Democrats, not all? What is it that is such a problem? Oh, that's right. It's accountability. They want to avoid accountability at all costs. Whatever they have to do to make sure that they are not held responsible for the crappy decisions they make, the ill effects of those decisions on the American people, that's what they'll do. And there is perhaps nobody who is putting on more of a clinic, more of a master's class in that regard than Governor Cuomo of New York. Governor Cuomo. What is he saying now? He's written a book. Let me tell you about the book. The book is about how he did a phenomenal job handling COVID. Why was he so good with COVID? Well, don't look at the numbers, but look at all of the speeches that he gave. When he was giving those speeches, people were thinking, okay, there's a guy, he's a governor, he's talking. Right. That's pretty much it. But there is a book out. I'm not kidding about that. That's real, where he's talking about what a great job he did. And of course, he didn't write it. I mean, come on. Nobody really expects that. Here is the governor, though, blaming, there's all these restrictions still, and particularly in New York City, a huge amount, with 25% restaurant capacity. And I'm going to talk about the restaurant thing in a second. But there's all these restrictions that are in place. And you would think that since this is a state and local decision, that the state and local authorities would be to blame. But no, Governor Cuomo wants to put the blame on somebody else. Play two.
The virus was coming here on planes from Europe for 3 months. Most of those flights were landing on the East Coast, many of them in New York City. That's why New York was ambushed by that coronavirus. And that's why we had to shut down the way we did. And that's why you see the economic numbers down for New York, because we shut down. But you now are reporting on states in the West that didn't shut down and didn't take COVID seriously. And now you're seeing their cases go up, right? So it makes the point. Yes, we shut down because we were ambushed, but we got the virus out of control. Those other states that were in denial, that's where you're seeing the increase now. There is no second wave, Stephanie. This is the first wave that they never came to terms with because they denied it. And now you're seeing the numbers go up.
What a rewriting of history from this massive jerk. New York and New Jersey collectively, which you have to think of as they're really operate in this regard like one area, one state. More people died from COVID here per capita than anywhere else in the United States, and one of the worst rates in the world, right up there with northern Italy, with some of the places that had major outbreaks that decimated particularly the elderly population and people in nursing homes. He had the worst. I mean, the absolute worst. And he thinks he should lecture other states? This is like the kid who gets an F on a paper telling a kid who gets a B on a paper a couple of weeks later, if you had studied harder, you would have gotten an A. What do you know, Cuomo? Disaster. The guy's an absolute disaster. And this is make-believe. That we've got the virus under control because of all of our precautions. We had these precautions. We had much more in the way of precautions in place for months, and the virus was ripping through the city. Couldn't bring the curve down. 10 weeks. Couldn't do anything. Couldn't put a dent in it. Kept getting worse and worse and worse. Lockdowns, masks, hand washing. Couldn't stop it. And now, after it ripped through New York, at least 20% of New York City got infected or was exposed. Numbers probably substantially higher than that. Now he thinks we should do a victory dance? Now he thinks that we should take a moment to look at how he did a great job? I mean, is this guy out of his mind? I mean, the answer is, well, no. He's engaged in the propaganda of somebody who is going to run for president. Get ready for that. Now, if Biden loses, maybe not, but he will run against Trump the next time around. That's right. Governor Cuomo will run for president. So he's preparing the groundwork for that right now by making himself an anti-Trump figure. and saying that it's the federal government that's to blame. And also, saying that all these flights coming in from Europe, does he not understand how just basic disease transmission works? Yes, it started in China, it spread in China, then it went to Europe, and then there were some flights from Europe that came here. But once it gets seeded into the population, Cuomo, you utter buffoon, it spreads in that country. So once you already have it showing up here, which it was long before this 3-month period he's talking about, then it goes person to person in the U.S. We weren't just importing flight after flight of COVID patients from anywhere. The shutdown from China might have bought us a little bit of time in that period. But remember, it had already spread a lot in China. It was getting to a place of spread in Europe. So the shutdown in China may have bought some time. Eventually, it was going to hit us here. There was no way around this. No country that is our size and interdependence with the rest of the world was able to avoid this. Not even close. Not even close. But here we are. I think that now people would probably say, "Oh, what about Japan and South Korea?" They've been preparing. First of all, they have very different populations when it comes to health and obesity and hypertension, things like that. They've done far less. They basically don't test for this. They've done far less testing in the beginning of this. If people really think that they've managed to shut down, I mean, first of all, Japan is an island. It is a lot easier to control who's coming and going. And there's real questions out there about how much cross T cell immunity, cross immunity there is from T cells from people who are next door to China that may have been exposed to similar coronaviruses in the past. So they may already have had a wave of something close enough to this in that area. Why didn't this spread all throughout China? We don't seem to really have a particularly. Now, I think the Chinese government's lying about this. We don't have answers. But I can tell you this, because I'm watching very closely, and I'm here in New York as this whole thing plays out in New York City, in the heart of the worst hit place in the entire country. The idea that bureaucrats harassing people and telling them to mask up all the time is some brilliant plan that's saved tons of lives is a fantasy. It's a fantasy. It's just not true. I was here when we were all masking, and the disease was spreading everywhere. And everyone was much more scared of it then because we thought the fatality rates were higher. And then eventually it receded. Why hasn't it come back in New York? They'll tell you it's because of mask wearing, but then they say there are a lot of people who don't wear masks. When the disease spreads, it's because we're not doing enough of what they say. When it's gone and spread a lot and then it recedes, it's because we were doing what they say. This is how they approach this. They can't be wrong, right? Isn't that convenient? They can't be wrong in all of this. But perhaps even more reckless. I just got a vaccine because I got a little nephew on the way soon, which is very exciting. My sister's having a baby any day now. It's due date, game time, right here. But I'm gonna have a little nephew any day now, which is very exciting. But I had to get the whooping cough vaccine, so I got that done. And I was talking to the woman, the technician that gave me the vaccine, and I said, how prepared are you guys going to be for when this vaccine eventually gets? She said they're expecting it to just be like round the clock. They're already having conversations about how they're going to try to implement that because, it seems like, well, there's a lot of people to give out the vaccine, but this is going to be almost like a military scale operation to get this out there, to get it to people. It's going to be a big deal. And, there's these people out there who are raising questions like Governor Cuomo about whether you can even trust a vaccine. This is so reckless and so wrong, but politically useful in this moment. Here's what Cuomo's saying about it. Play one.
How confident are you in the approval process of the FDA right now?
Well, first, how confident am I? I'm not that confident, but my opinion doesn't matter. I don't believe the American people are that confident. You're going to say to the American people now, here's a vaccine. It was new. It was done quickly. But trust this federal administration and their health administration that it's safe, and we're not 100% sure of the consequences, I think it's going to be a very skeptical American public about taking the vaccine, and they should be.
So what's it going to take to convince you that it's safe, that it's effective, that it should be distributed?
Well, what I said I'm going to do in New York is we're going to put together our own group of doctors and medical experts to review the vaccine and the efficacy and the protocol. And if they say it's safe, then I'll go to the people of New York and I will say it's safe. With that credibility. But I believe all across the country, you're going to need someone other than this FDA and this CDC saying it's safe.
That's right. Here you have a governor of one of the largest states in the country telling a national news audience, you can't trust the FDA on this vaccine. Remember, they keep playing this game of, oh, it's Trump. Trump has to wait for the approvals from the FDA. So what he's really claiming here is that there's some way that Trump will have corrupted the FDA to give people an unsafe vaccine for political reasons. Let's all understand this right now. If Trump loses, there's zero incentive to do that. Right? So it would only be if Trump wins. So let's start with that very obvious proposition. And then beyond that Cuomo is going to have his panel of New York state health experts that are going to determine this. They have better access to the data. They have a better understanding of this than the FDA. But this is all the FDA does. Now, I'm not saying that all of a sudden I think federal government agencies are infallible. Far from it. And I think it's understandable to have questions about them in a lot of contexts. But here it's very transparent what's happening. I mean, they're questioning the FDA because of Trump. Because of Trump, we can't trust the FDA. So the New York State Health Authority is going to do its own testing on this. Cuomo and his band of morons are going to be the ones that determine whether this is safe. All playing politics here. Undermining the trust that the American people can have in the safety of a vaccine once approved by the FDA and federal authorities, undermining that because it makes Trump look bad. That's what they're willing to do. So just remember that when they try to tell you that this is all about protecting life and listening to the science and all this stuff, oh no, they're willing to completely discount the science as long as it means that they can take a swipe at President Trump. They're willing to make people believe that the FDA is no longer a reputable source of information on the safety of a drug, a vaccine, that will be distributed to the American population en masse soon enough, hopefully, God willing. And that just goes to show you how utterly polluted and political this discussion has become. While he's telling you about how much he cares about public safety, the governor of New York is, in the most cynical and blatant fashion, undermining public safety and health. That's how the Democrats are rolling these days. Hey, Team Buck, thank you so much for watching The First on YouTube. If you like this video, please click that little thumbs up button so then it will log as liked. And also, if you want to see more great content from The First, please click subscribe.